Good day, everyone. I am Victor, the moderator of this webinar. I welcome everyone to today's webinar, which is Provider Credentialing in 2026, Updated Standard Verification Best Practices and Strategies to Reduce Delays. I want to introduce our presenter for today, Alina Minelli. Alina Minelli is the Senior Credentialing Specialist at WCH Service Bureau, Incorporated, with extensive expertise in insurance credentialing, contract negotiations, and provider enrollment. I would now like to hand over the floor to the speaker. Over to you, Alina.
Thank you, Lima, for the introduction. Welcome, everyone, and thank you again for joining. So today's session is structured intentionally, and we're going to build in layer by layer. So first, we'll start with what has changed in 2026, why credentialing feels more complex, and why applications are still being returned, rejected, or denied. Then we'll move into system alignment, NPI, CAQH, PECOS, and NPPES, because in 2026, mismatches across these systems are one of the biggest causes of preventable delays. Clean submissions begin with alignment. After that, we'll break down Medicaid, Medicare, and commercial enrollment differences. You cannot use the same strategy for every payer. So understanding payer behavior is critical. Next, we'll cover structured tracking timeline, follow-up strategy, escalation best practices, and communication workflows, because submission alone does not move an application. And finally, we'll address revalidation, recredentialing, and ongoing compliance monitoring, because credentialing does not end at approval. As we go through this, I want you to start thinking about your active cases. If something is stalled, you should ask yourself, was it alignment, verification, documentation, communication, or sequencing, right? So by the end of today, you should be able to identify that immediately. Why credentialing is more complex? Credentialing has always been important, but in 2026, it has become much more risk sensitive. There are several reasons why the process feels more complex. The modern credentialing lifecycle. This slide really shows the full credentialing lifecycle. And I always remind team that credentialing is not a single event. It's a continuous cycle. Why systems must align in 2026? This is honestly one of the most important concepts in the entire presentation. Follow-up strategy. The credentialing process always follows the same basic foundation. Tracking submitted applications. Submissions is not the end of the process. It's really the midpoint. And in 2026, tracking has to be structured, documented, and consistent. Pre-submission verification in 2026. Before I submit anything, I always follow a structured verification protocol. Primary source verification. Primary source verification is not an option. Multi-state credentialing and Medicaid. Medicaid is one of the trickiest part of the credentialing because it is completely state-specific. Medicare credentialing, federal process and tracking. So now let's talk about Medicare. When it comes to Medicare, I always emphasize one simple principle. Get it right the first time. Medicaid versus Medicare. Let's talk about their differences. Commercial versus Medicare Advantage differences. And let's continue on the commercial versus Medicare Advantage differences. So why applications still fail in 2026? Tracking new versus existing provider applications. Communication is honestly one of the most underrated parts of credentialing. Once you've built a solid communication system, the next step is making it efficient and sustainable. Escalating issues with payers. Validation has become more aggressive, especially with Medicaid and Medicare. Credentialing and continuous monitoring. Tools and technology. Staying current and thinking strategically. Approach credentialing in this way, you're not just managing paperwork, you are shaping the future of the practice. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this. Credentialing is complex, but it's absolutely controllable. When you focus on alignment, verification, structured tracking, proactive monitoring, and strategic planning, the process becomes predictable instead of chaotic. In 2026, most delays are preventable, most denials are detail related, and most escalations can be avoided with stronger pre-submission verification. Credentialing is no longer just paperwork, right? It's a compliance infrastructure. It protects revenue, it protects access, and it directly supports organizational growth. When it's done intentionally and strategically, credentialing stops being reactive, right, and becomes a business advantage. Thank you, Lima. It was a pleasure hosting this webinar. I hope it was informational. I hope this was helpful for any credentialers who are facing any type of issues in credentialing. Thank you again.
Thank you again, Alina. And that concludes the session for today. Thank you everyone for participating. You may all disconnect now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.